Treasury Secretary Jack Lew is here. Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for coming in.
Great to be with you, Candy.
If I can just sort of sum up what you've been saying, and that is, come October 17th, you have run out of tricks, although you don't use that word, but ways that you can sort of massage the numbers to keep it going so that you don't go over the debt ceiling that Congress has set. You need a new debt ceiling by October 17th. What happens on October 18th if you don't get it?
Well, it's a very good question, Candy. And just to be clear, we crossed the debt limit in May. Since May, we've been creating some room to borrow by using what are called extraordinary measures. They've been used so many times, they're not as extraordinary as they used to be. Tuesday, I wrote to Congress saying I'd use my last extraordinary measures. I have no more. That means that on October 17th, we'll run out of the ability to borrow. We'll be left with some cash on hand. And I've told Congress it'll be roughly $30 billion. And $30 billion is a lot of money. But when you think about the cash flow of the government of the United States, we have individual days when our negative or positive cash flow is $50 or $60 billion. So $30 billion is not a responsible amount of cash to run the government on. It won't last very long.
Are you telling me that nothing would happen on the 18th?
Well, I can't tell you. We've never gotten to this point, Candy. You know, we've never gotten to the point where the United States government has operated without the ability to borrow. It's very dangerous. It's reckless because the reality is there are no good choices if we run out of borrowing capacity and we run out of cash. It will mean that the United States, for the first time since 1789, would be not paying its bills, hurting the full faith and credit because of a political decision.
Let me play you something that Congressman Steve King of Iowa, a Republican, said, talking about the possibility of servicing the debt past this deadline.
I don't think the credit of the United States is going to be collapsed. I think that all this talk about a default has been a lot of demagoguery, a lot of false demagoguery.
So the question is it technically possible for you to keep up with your debts? Can you not just pay the interest rate on these debts while this is worked out?
You know, Candy, I got to tell you that anyone who thinks that the United States government not paying its bills is anything less than default hasn't thought about it very clearly. Because let me ask you a question. Let me ask you, what happens if we're not able to pay Social Security on time? What happens if we can't pay disability and veterans payments on time?
Which is a separate issue of...
What happens if we can't pay Medicare and Medicaid? In each of these cases, it means that families, businesses, institutions that are important won't be getting what they rely on from the federal government.
And coming on the 18th, you won't be able to pay Social Security, you won't be able to pay Medicare, you won't be able to pay all of these things?
I'm telling you that on the 17th, we run out of our ability to borrow. And Congress is playing with fire. If they don't extend the debt limit, we have a very, very short window of time before those scenarios start to be played out.
Could you keep up on servicing the debt, that is, paying the interest on the U.S. debt, therefore not defaulting, as you've been
Candy, if the United States government, for the first time in its history, chooses not to pay its bills on time, we will be in default. There is no option that prevents us from being in default if we don't have enough cash to pay our bills.
But very often in bills, and correct me if I'm wrong, can you not pay the interest? I'm just trying to figure out wiggle room, because what Republicans are saying is these guys do this all the time as we run up. Look at Wall Street. It's kind of looking at it going, this doesn't seem to be that big a deal to us this time around. No one's been threatening to downgrade the U.S. credit worthiness. So the question is it true, as they say, that you could service the debt beyond the 17th?
Candy, let me put this in context. We are the strongest, most important economy in the world. We've already seen that with the government shutdown, the kinds of gridlock and brinksmanship in Washington hurts people and it hurts the economy. We saw in 2011 what happened as we approached the point of breaching the debt limit. You now have people who are saying, oh, it won't be that bad. Well, I challenge them to answer the questions that I asked you. They're willing to concede if we don't pay interest and principal on the debt that that's bad. Well, you know, it is bad, but there are a lot of things that are bad. You can't pay all the bills if Congress doesn't raise the debt ceiling. And none of these bills are new. These are commitments that Congress made. It's paying old bills. It would be like somebody saying, I ran out my credit card and I decided not to pay it. You can't do that. The United States government is just too important to the world. Our currency is the world's reserve currency.